This is John Griffin again, and this is the second of two videos that introduce the technological inheritance argument for a universal basic income. As promised, this second video will provide answers to several of the most frequent questions on this subject. If you have not yet viewed Part 1, I recommend you do that first. A pointer to Part 1 is pinned below. At this point, however, I will offer the following quick summary of Part 1. Over thousands of years, humanity has accumulated the knowledge, technology, and infrastructure without which our modern economy would not be possible. That technological heritage belongs to the people and is responsible for at least 80% of the value created by a modern economy. Only the remainder is due to the efforts of individuals or companies. Therefore, society has every right to demand that a portion of that 80+% be distributed as a universal basic income. Now, for question number 1. If we, the people, own 80+% of the economy's means of production, isn't that just socialism? That is a fair question, and to answer it, we will, of course, need a definition. Primary definition of socialism, given by the Merriam-Webster Dictionary, says it is any of various economic and political theories advocating collective or governmental ownership and administration of the means of production and distribution of goods. The difference between this definition and what the technological inheritance argument implies is quite simple. Technological inheritance does not mean that society has a right to claim ownership of anyone's company. Personally, I believe that an economy built around privately owned and operated companies is the most efficient way to bring goods and services to the people. We, as a society, need to recognize that private entrepreneurs and their investors play a fundamental role in making our economy work efficiently. The rest of us are usually just their employees or consumers of their products and services. However, the hard work and dedication of these exceptional individuals should not be allowed to obscure the simple fact that much of the value currently accruing to them and their companies is not due to their efforts or investments. Rather, it is due to their use of the value-producing power of our technological heritage. Private companies do not own that, and society should be properly paid for its use. Question number 2. If we require corporations and wealthy individuals to pay for their use of our technological heritage, how will we determine what they owe? The answer to this question is complex and should be thoroughly discussed. But a primary indicator of how much our technological heritage is being used is revenue per employee. A highly automated and computerized company will almost certainly have a higher revenue per employee than a company that relies primarily on human labor. This measure can offer the advantage of giving a break to the many small companies that still provide employment to a significant fraction of our workforce. Question number 3. If our technological heritage is in the public domain, doesn't that mean that it is available for anyone to use free of charge? This is a commonly held belief, but in reality, the use of our public domain knowledge, technology, and infrastructure was never free of charge. Companies that made use of it were expected in return to hire employees and pay them a living wage. Those wages enabled their employees to claim a share of economic output and could be considered a form of payment for the use of our public domain property. In today's world, however, increasing levels of automation and computerization have enabled companies to increase revenue while employing ever fewer human workers. And the workers that remain find themselves receiving an ever smaller share of the economic pie. This new economic reality means that society now requires a different method of payment for the use of its property. It is long past time to simply require a cash payment for the use of our technological heritage, and to use that cash to fund a universal basic income. Question number 4. If society claims that at least 80% of economic output belongs to the people, will the remaining 20% be enough to motivate entrepreneurs and investors? This is an important question. Let me say again that it is in the best interest of society to acknowledge that a small percentage of our population is responsible for making our economy work. These hardworking and innovative entrepreneurs and investors are the engine that drives our economy. For that engine to continue running, we must make sure that such individuals are properly motivated. As I mentioned previously, less than 20% of our GDP is needed to fund a meaningful UBI. Our tax laws could easily be written to use, say, another 20 of the remaining 60+% of publicly owned GDP as an extra incentive for business owners and their investors. A few legendary entrepreneurs like Jeff Bezos and Bill Gates could still rightfully become billionaires, but today's level of unjustifiable wealth and income inequality would be significantly reduced. Furthermore, I am not worried that such a system would significantly discourage entrepreneurs and investors. We had much less income and wealth inequality in the 1950s, but we had no shortage of entrepreneurs. Question number 5. If all citizens receive a universal basic income, won't producers just take advantage of that by raising prices? Many believe that when a UBI puts more money into people's pockets, producers will be able to raise prices. However, the competition inherent in a properly regulated capitalist economy should guarantee that that won't happen. The phrase to emphasize here, however, is a properly regulated capitalist economy. Such regulation will always be necessary to prevent collusion and price fixing. In addition, the computerization and automation that made a UBI necessary in the first place will continue to reduce production costs. Those reduced costs will in turn result either in price reductions or in additional revenue that can be used to increase UBI payments. Question number 6. Won't a universal basic income just cause people to stop working? No. A UBI only provides for necessities. Scores of basic income pilot programs worldwide show little or no evidence that it will cause someone to give up a worthwhile job and just do nothing. In fact, those same programs often show that a UBI provides the financial freedom to pursue improved employment opportunities. Question number 7. Would the rich also receive a UBI? Yes. A UBI belongs to all citizens by simple inheritance, regardless of wealth or income. However, that does not prevent a country from adjusting its tax laws to take back a higher percentage of the UBI from the wealthy. Question number 8. If a UBI is so desirable, why is there opposition to it? Under the technological inheritance argument, a UBI will be paid for by individuals and companies who receive value from their use of that heritage. Those individuals and companies currently keep most of that value and are understandably reluctant to give it up. This is why the demand for a UBI must come from those at the bottom of the economic spectrum. The vast majority at the top will resist vigorously. And finally, question number 9. What won't be covered by a universal basic income? A universal basic income will be just that, basic. While it may replace most or even all current welfare programs and perhaps even eventually Social Security, it is not intended to cover health care, education, national defense, and other large programs. However, if a UBI requires just 20 of the 80+% of GDP produced by our technological inheritance, and say another 20 is used to incentivize business owners, that still leaves about 40% of GDP for these other needs. That is far more than we are currently spending on those items, so we will have a solid cushion. Of course, these questions and answers are certainly not a complete list, so feel free to add your own in the comments section below. In summary, I consider a universal basic income to be critically necessary to solve a host of current and future societal problems. So if you have reached this point, I thank you for your continued attention to this important topic. Please consider leaving a comment, pressing the like button, and sharing this video so that others become aware of this important idea.